You know that specific relief you feel when plans get canceled? That exhale. The way your shoulders drop when you read, "Hey, something came up," and you don't even need to fake disappointment because there's none there. Just space. Silence. The permission to exist without performing. Most people think that's antisocial. It's not. It's recognition. Your nervous system recognizing a threat it no longer has to manage. Because here's what nobody tells you about fake friendships. They're not just exhausting. They're a biological alarm system that never stops ringing. Dr. Sheldon Cohen at Carnegie Mellon spent decades studying social stress, and what his research found wasn't about loneliness. It was about the cortisol cost of pretending. Your body can't tell the difference between a predator in the wild and a conversation where you're censoring every third sentence. Both feel like survival. And after enough repetitions, your brain stops seeing the difference between community and threat. The sympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for fight or flight, it doesn't distinguish between a bear chasing you and a friend who makes you explain yourself every time you set a boundary. Same response. Elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, that knot in your stomach that appears 20 minutes before you're supposed to meet them. So you start choosing yourself. Not because you hate people, because you've calculated the cost, and it's too high. That's not damage, that's data processing. Let me describe what fake friendship actually looks like at a neural level. Imagine your prefrontal cortex as a bouncer. Its job is threat detection. Who's safe? Who's performing? Who's extracting? And in genuine connection, that bouncer gets to rest. The brain releases oxytocin. Heart rate variability stabilizes. You stop scanning for exits. But in a fake friendship, the bouncer never clocks out. You're monitoring tone, watching for judgment, translating your actual thoughts into an acceptable dialect of yourself. And that hypervigilance? It's the same mechanism your ancestors used to survive predators. Except now the predator is wearing a smile and asking how you've been, and you can feel it. That tightness in your chest when someone texts, "We need to catch up." The way your energy drops when you're around certain people, even though nothing explicitly bad happened. The subtle nausea that creeps in when you see their name on your screen. Your body is whispering. It's saying, "This person doesn't feel safe." Not because they're evil, but because there's a gap between the script and the truth. And your nervous system doesn't do well with gaps. It reads inauthenticity as danger. Because on a primal level, inconsistency means unpredictability. And unpredictability means you can't let your guard down. So you don't. You smile, you nod, you ask the right questions. And the entire time, your adrenal glands are working overtime producing stress hormones that'll keep you wired until 3 a.m. even though the lunch ended at 1. There's a concept in social psychology called relational energy, coined by researchers at University of Michigan. It's simple. Some people charge your battery, others drain it. And the ones who drain it the fastest aren't the ones who hurt you outright. They're the ones who require you to be smaller. The friends who need you to be fun, but not too honest. Successful but not threatening. Available but not needy. Struggling but not in a way that makes them uncomfortable. The ones who love a version of you that doesn't actually exist. And the performance of maintaining that version? It's called self-monitoring in psychology. And studies show that people who engage in chronic self-monitoring, constantly adjusting their behavior to fit social expectations, report higher rates of anxiety, depression, and something researchers call identity fragmentation. You start losing track of who you actually are underneath all the adjustments. And after years of that, you stop trying to exist in that shape. You choose the silence, the Saturday nights alone, the unanswered group chats, the slow fade from people who only knew the edited version anyway. Not because you're broken, because you've finally stopped breaking yourself to fit. People will call you cold for this. Detached. Avoidant. They'll diagnose you with labels pulled from Instagram infographics about attachment styles. They'll say you're scared of intimacy or running from connection. But here's the truth. Solitude isn't the absence of connection. It's the presence of self. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do is refuse to abandon yourself for the comfort of people who were never really there. There's a reason you feel more lonely in a crowded room than you do at 2 a.m. with your own thoughts. Loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about being unseen. And if your options are, be unseen in a group of people who need you to perform, or be fully present with yourself in the quiet, that's not isolation. That's integrity. I want to talk about something called social selectivity theory. It was developed by Stanford psychologist Laura Carstensen, and it challenges this idea that wanting fewer friends as you get older, or as you get wiser, is somehow a sign of giving up. It's the opposite. It's your brain realizing that time and energy are finite resources, and that spending them on surface-level connections that don't nourish you is a form of self-betrayal. The research shows that people who are selective about their social circles report higher life satisfaction than those who maintain large networks of shallow ties. Translation? Quality over quantity isn't a cliché. It's a survival strategy, and maybe that's what people don't understand. When you say you'd rather be alone than with fake friends, you're not saying you don't want connection. You're saying you refuse to call performance connection anymore. You're drawing a line between presence and proximity, because someone can be physically next to you and emotionally in another universe, and your nervous system knows the difference even when your mind tries to rationalize it away. Look, I'm not saying all friendships are fake, or that you should never trust anyone, but I am saying this. If your peace comes from people leaving you alone, that's information, not pathology. If your energy returns when you stop attending events out of obligation, that's a compass, not a flaw. If you've started treating your time like something sacred instead of something everyone's entitled to, that's not coldness. That's clarity. The people who prefer being alone aren't running from connection. They're running toward themselves. And they've realized that no friendship is better than a friendship that costs you your authenticity. That quiet you protect, that's not emptiness. That's a sanctuary you built after realizing the world kept handing you houses made of glass, and you got tired of bleeding every time someone threw a stone. So you built something different, something with walls thick enough to keep out the noise, with doors that only open from the inside, with windows that let light in without exposing everything you are to people who are only ever curious, never committed. And if that makes you hard to reach, good. Not everyone deserves access. If you've ever felt guilty for not wanting to be around people who don't actually know you, you can stop now. Your solitude isn't a disorder, it's a boundary with a lock on it. And you're the only one who gets to hold the key. The world will try to convince you that something's wrong with you for preferring your own company, that you're missing out, that you're shutting people out, that you'll regret it when you're older and realize you spent too much time alone. But they won't tell you about the regret that comes from spending years with people who made you feel alone anyway. They won't mention that part. So if you're reading this and recognizing yourself, if you're the person who feels lighter after declining an invitation, who finds more honesty in silence than in small talk, who's learned that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's necessary, you're not broken, you're not cold, you're not missing some gene that makes socializing easy. You're just done pretending it doesn't cost you something. And that awareness? That's not isolation, that's liberation. If this landed somewhere specific, leave a comment. I read the silences between the words.